Let's focus attention on you. How are you doing? I invite you to sort yourself into one of three categories. How quickly and how well you benefit from this course, how quickly you reduce stress in a lasting way, is a function of which category you're actually in. Please be ruthlessly honest when evaluating yourself. Unless you tell someone else or leave a record, nobody else will ever know how you evaluate yourself. This is just between us. In time, your evaluation is likely to change anyway. The categories are all about your degree of dissatisfaction or suffering. What are the three? First, you are acutely suffering, perhaps even suicidal. You are under intense stress. You may be suffering from major or clinical depression. If so, it's likely that your brain is less than wholly healthy, which can be due to alcohol or drug abuse or some neurological ailment or imbalance. If you are acutely suffering, it would be a mistake to try to get back to normal without help if help is available. The reason is that your brain is not likely working well. That can be temporary. Understand that you are neither unique nor alone. Based on my own experience, my reading, and my experience with undergraduates and prison inmates over the years, I believe that about 1/4 to 1/3 of the adult population is acutely suffering at any given time. Especially if you care enough about yourself to get some help, the good news is that your being in this category is almost certainly temporary. It's not only possible to get back to normal, it's possible for you. You are not stuck in hell forever. That may not be true for everyone who is acutely suffering, but you are almost certainly capable of normalcy. How do I know that? Because you're engaged in this training. You care enough about the quality of your life to want to understand how to reduce stress in a lasting way and do what is required. In other words, at least for you, just the desire to want to reduce stress in a lasting way is sufficient for me to assure you that you need not be stuck acutely suffering for the rest of your life. The silver lining? What you actually have is an opportunity to learn how to live better indefinitely. Second, most people suffer normally. Their level of dissatisfaction rises and falls as they react to the ups and downs of life. So, except for those who are acutely dissatisfied, nearly everyone else is normally dissatisfied. The odds are that you are in this middle category. It doesn't matter how successful you've been, doesn't matter how famous or powerful you are, doesn't matter how old or young you are, it doesn't matter whether your health is good or not, it doesn't matter whether you have lots of good friends or not, it doesn't matter whether you're married or single, whether you're a parent or childless, whether or not you own your own house, whether you have a college degree, and so on. Normal is normal. If you are normal with respect to your degree of dissatisfaction, you have both an advantage and a disadvantage over anyone who is suffering acutely. The advantage, of course, is that you enjoy life more. You don't hurt as much. Most of your days are tolerable, decent, or even good days. The disadvantage is that you have less motivation to improve the quality of your life. It's difficult, but not that difficult, to do what most people do, namely, lead a settled-for life of normalcy. It doesn't take much courage to stay stuck, especially in affluent contemporary societies like North American ones. Notice, though, that there's also nothing to guarantee that you won't slip into the acutely suffering category at any moment. Since you understand that, you may have that fear constantly in the back of your mind. Probably you've visited hell occasionally. You'll certainly suffer losses in life. One loss could be the death of a parent, sibling, lover, friend, or child. Another could be a permanent loss of health or lasting disability. Another could be a loss of a career or a great deal of money. Another could be a loss of your home. Experiencing any great loss is like falling flat on your face. It hurts a lot. The only question is whether you decide to rise again or not. When I once asked him, the Zen master, who is the abbot of the Rochester Zen Center, confirmed what I already suspected, namely that most people who begin Zen training are stimulated to do so by experiencing some important loss. 99% of the people you have ever met are likely to be in one of those first two categories. The third category is those who are sages, saints, successful philosophers. There is the ideal of a fully enlightened sage who never suffers at all. However, in my experience, most sages do still experience some dissatisfaction occasionally. It's just that it's over rather quickly and is typically not very intense. Here's how I suggest that we think of it. Living well, living as a sage lives, is like being healthy. It's not that healthy people never become ill. Rather, it's the case that when an occasional illness strikes, they quickly recover. They enjoy robust health and have strong immune systems. They bounce back quickly. Similarly, it's not usually the case that sages never become dissatisfied. Rather, it's the case that when an occasional dissatisfaction strikes, they quickly recover their serene, peaceful, joyful state of mind. They bounce back quickly. They don't experience either the intensity or the duration the rest of us do in similar situations. How do I know this? It's not because I myself am a sage. It's because I have known sages and personally witnessed their responses to losses and other distressing situations. I've also read a lot about them. Also, although I'm not myself a sage, I've had a meditative practice nearly every day for the last quarter century, and that's improved my life significantly in a lasting way. I've not only observed how much better I respond to life's vicissitudes, such as losses, than I used to, but other people, including both my parents when they were alive, have observed the same phenomenon and mentioned it to me. Permit me to remind you that the context here is psychological or mental stress. Sages, of course, have no advantage over the rest of us in terms of physical stress. When a sage lifts a heavy weight, his or her body is just as stressed as ours are when we lift a heavy weight. It's not necessary to become a sage yourself to reduce in a lasting way the amount of mental stress you experience. That's been my experience. Remember that stress is a kind of dissatisfaction or suffering. Insofar as you engage in some effective meditative practice or other that reduces dissatisfaction, you'll automatically alleviate stress. What should you do to live better? What should you do to live more like sages live? I don't know. Nobody knows. Whatever you do or don't do, know that it will have future consequences, and the future is unknown and unknowable. The good news is that ordinary causal or scientific laws usually keep applying. Regularity of types of events tends to persist routinely. For example, when you wanted a cup of coffee or cup of tea yesterday and heated the water for it sufficiently, it boiled. Do you now know that the next time you heat water in a similar fashion it will boil? No, you don't. Nobody does. As the great philosopher David Hume argued, from the fact that a causal law or constant conjunction of types of events held in the past, assuming that it actually did hold in the past and we are somehow able to apprehend that fact, does not follow that it will continue to hold in the future. Of course, we feel that the water for your next cup of tea will boil when sufficiently heated, but that's nothing but a brute psychological fact about us. Feeling shocked is hardly justification. Is there at least some non-demonstrative evidence of what we should do to reduce stress in a lasting way? I don't know. The reason I don't know is because I don't know what non-demonstrative evidence is. Nobody does. Although lots of people assume that they know what it is. The nature of non-demonstrative evidence is the chief unsolved problem in epistemology, theory of knowledge. I return to this important insight. So, what should we do to diminish dissatisfaction? Well, we can at least look at what some people have done who have achieved what we'd like to achieve and emulate them. Like success, mastery leaves clues. That may or may not work, but it seems to me a reasonable procedure. In the next video in this sequence, let's have a closer look at the concept of evidence and then follow that up with more about the apparently reasonable procedure I just mentioned. Meanwhile, if you are acutely suffering, my recommendation is to get some help. From a sage, if you happen to know one, a spiritual master, a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, or a consulting philosopher. You have two tasks. Job 1, get back to normal. Job 2, get to work practicing living well and don't settle for mere normalcy, which is what would be wise for everyone who is only normally suffering should do.